there is some moving and shaking going on in the Indiana Fever organization because they have definitely let go of a player. Now, I know y'all thinking, what does this mean? This means Caitlin Clark return is sooner rather than later. Could that be why we did not see Caitlin come back? I mean, we did not see Caitlin travel with the team this past week. I don't know.
Guys, today the Indiana Fever have officially released Kyra Lambert, a guard from overseas who Stephanie White signed on a trust me bro recommendation. Somebody who Stephanie White didn't even know existed up until about 8 days ago. Unfortunately for Kyra Lambert, her time on the Indiana Fever has come and her time on the Indiana Fever has gone. Best of luck to you and your future endeavors. This has been...
I'm here to tell you something massive is shaking inside the Indiana Fever organization, because just when everyone thought the team would stay quiet during this stretch of injuries, they suddenly dropped a bombshell move by cutting a player out of nowhere. And this isn't just some routine roster shuffle. This is the kind of decision that makes analysts stop mid-sentence and fans jump on social media to demand answers, because why would the Fever release someone they literally just signed to patch up their broken lineup? Unless, of course, there's a bigger plan in motion, and that plan is starting to look crystal clear. Caitlin Clark, the face of the franchise, the superstar fans have been praying for, might be coming back a lot sooner than expected. And the Fever may have just tipped their hand with this shocking choice, leaving the basketball world buzzing with one burning question: are we about to witness the dramatic return of Caitlin Clark right before our very eyes? The Indiana Fever have officially released Kyra Lambert, a guard who was supposed to be their emergency solution during this injury crisis. And let me tell you, this isn't just some background move buried in the roster. This is a statement, because Lambert was brought in less than 2 weeks ago on a 7-day hardship contract. She barely even unpacked her bags before getting the call that her time in Indiana was over. And while on paper it looks like just another short-term player being cycled in and out, the timing tells us everything. Lambert was signed because Caitlin Clark, Ari McDonald, and Sydney Colson were all sidelined at once. The Fever were drowning without point guards and desperate for anyone who could handle the ball. And Lambert, fresh off a strong run in Greece, was supposed to plug the hole, but instead of letting her finish out that 7-day deal, the team decided to cut her early. And that is exactly why fans are convinced this isn't about Lambert at all, it's about Clark. Because the only logical explanation for pulling the plug this fast is that Indiana knows their superstar is closer than ever to returning. Now, here's where things get really interesting, because under WNBA hardship, rules the Fever only had to release one of their temporary signings once Caitlin Clark was ready to return, and everyone assumed they would wait until the last possible moment to make that choice. Yet, instead, they pulled the trigger early on Kyra Lambert, which sends a crystal clear signal that this wasn't just about a contract expiring, this was about strategy. Because Odyssey Sims, the other hardship pickup, is a veteran who just logged 42 minutes in their last game and clearly proved she belongs in the rotation, while Lambert barely touched the floor, playing only a handful of seconds. So when you look at the pecking order, it's obvious the Fever saw Sims as the keeper and Lambert as the expendable piece. But here's the twist: if Caitlin Clark were still weeks away, there would have been no urgency to cut Lambert so soon. They could have kept her body on the bench just for insurance, which is why analysts believe this move screams confidence that Clark is just days away from stepping back on the court. And if that's true, the Fever may have just turned a routine roster cut into the loudest hint yet that the league's biggest star is about to make her dramatic return. Think about how wild this really is, because Kyra Lambert wasn't just cut after a week, she was cut before even finishing the 7 days on her deal, making her stint one of the shortest in WNBA history. And the crazy part is, she barely even had a chance to prove herself, logging just 4 seconds of playing time in total, not even enough to register a stat line. And to make it worse, she didn't even get a proper WNBA player profile page, which has fans clowning the Fever online, calling it the most pointless contract of all time. And while some might say this was just a cold business move, the truth is this decision feels way too calculated, because teams don't release healthy guards in the middle of an injury crisis unless they know something big is coming. And every arrow points to Caitlin Clark because once she's back, they only needed one of the hardship players anyway. And Lambert was clearly never part of the long-term plan. So cutting her now isn't about failure, it's about making room, clearing space, and preparing for the return of the player who fills arenas, drives television ratings, and gives the Fever a fighting chance at the playoffs. Because let's be honest, no one buys a ticket to see Kyra Lambert. But when Caitlin Clark steps back on that court, the entire basketball world stops and watches. And here's where the Fever's decision gets even more revealing. Because when you look at the minutes distribution, it's obvious the coaching staff was already leaning heavily toward Odyssey Sims, giving her massive playing time while Lambert was basically invisible, and that tells you everything you need to know about who the team trusted to hold things together until Clark's return. But what really raises eyebrows is the timing, because Sophie Cunningham's recent injury created another hole in the rotation, and you would think the Fever might hold on to every warm body they could just to survive this stretch, yet they still chose to release Lambert anyway, which is why analysts are saying this wasn't about depth at all. It was about clearing the path for Clark. Because if her recovery was still uncertain or weeks away, there is no chance the Fever would take the risk of trimming down their guard options. But cutting Lambert now suggests that Clark's return is not just close, it's imminent, and the way this lines up with ESPN's injury reports, with practice schedules, and with the Fever's break in the calendar makes it look like the organization is positioning themselves perfectly for Clark to step back into the lineup and change everything. Now, let's talk timing, because this is where the entire story starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a perfectly scripted setup. The Fever just so happened to cut Lambert right before their extended break in the schedule. And that break falls exactly in line with the injury timeline insiders have been reporting for Caitlin Clark, with target return dates floating between the 22nd of August and the 26th of August, and the Seattle Storm game looking like the most likely stage for her comeback. So when you connect the dots, it's almost too obvious the Fever don't make a roster move this bold unless they know Clark is ready to shift from rehab into full practice mode. And what makes this even juicier is how perfectly it all lines up with ESPN broadcasts mentioning the staff's quiet optimism about her return. Stephanie White herself hinting that the plan was always to have Clark back before the regular season winds down. And the way fans online are reacting tells you they see this move as confirmation, because social media is exploding with countdown posts, speculation threads, and even mock welcome back highlight edits, all pointing to one thing: the Fever are preparing for a dramatic Clark comeback that could flip the WNBA playoff race upside down. Even without Caitlin Clark on the floor, the Indiana Fever have shown flashes of resilience that nobody expected, because this team has been dealing with injuries left and right. Yet somehow, they've managed to stay competitive against some of the league's toughest opponents, and that's a huge sign of growth compared to last season when they collapsed under pressure. Players like Natasha Howard have stepped into bigger roles. Kelsey Mitchell has carried the scoring load night after night, and Lexi Hull has delivered clutch plays that kept the Fever alive in games they had no business winning. So imagine what happens when you inject Caitlin Clark back into this mix. Suddenly, you're not just talking about survival, you're talking about a playoff caliber team. Because Clark isn't just another piece of the puzzle, she's the engine that drives everything. Her playmaking makes teammates better, her scoring stretches defenses, and her star power changes the entire energy of the building. So when you add her back to a group that has already proven it can scrap and fight without her, you're looking at a team that could flip the script on the entire WNBA narrative, turning from underdogs hanging by a thread into a dangerous playoff threat no one wants to face in the first round. When you break down Caitlin Clark's numbers, it becomes crystal clear why the Fever's entire season has been hanging in limbo, waiting for her return. Because before her injury, she was averaging 16.5 points, nearly 9 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. Production that not only makes her the heartbeat of Indiana's offense, but also one of the most valuable players in the league. And that's the kind of impact you can't replace with hardship contracts or short-term signings, which is why the Fever's decision to cut Kyra Lambert feels less like a gamble and more like a declaration that the franchise centerpiece is about to reclaim her spot. But here's the thing. This comeback isn't just about stats or filling box scores, it's about pressure. Because Clark doesn't just carry the fever, she carries the entire WNBA spotlight. She's the one who sells out arenas, drives national television ratings, and brings mainstream attention to the league. So when she steps back onto the court, every dribble will be magnified, every possession will be analyzed, and every win or loss will be tied directly to her shoulders. And that's what makes this return so dramatic, because it's not just about getting healthy, it's about proving to the world that she can live up to the superstar expectations that follow her everywhere she goes. Now, all eyes are locked on the calendar because the window for Caitlin Clark's return is here, and the buzz surrounding it is louder than ever. ESPN insiders are circling those dates between the 22nd of August and the 26th of August. Fans are flooding social media with countdowns and wild predictions, and even rival teams are quietly bracing themselves for the shift that's about to happen. Because when Clark returns, it doesn't just change the fever, it changes the balance of the entire league. Suddenly, Indiana goes from a team scraping for survival to a squad capable of crashing the playoff picture and spoiling someone else's season. And the way this team has fought without her only adds to the anticipation, because if they can hold their own shorthanded, just imagine the surge they'll unleash when their leader is back on the floor. This isn't just a comeback story, it's a potential turning point for the whole WNBA season. And whether you're a Fever fan praying for a playoff miracle or a rival hoping she stays sidelined a little longer, one thing is clear. The moment Caitlin Clark steps back onto the court, the energy in every arena shifts, the spotlight gets brighter, and the stakes for Indiana Fever basketball skyrocket like never before. At the end of the day, the Indiana Fever's decision to cut Kyra Lambert isn't just a footnote on the transaction wire, it's a flashing neon sign that Caitlin Clark is about to return. And when she does, everything changes, because this isn't just about filling a roster spot or balancing minutes, it's about unleashing the most electrifying player in the league back onto the court at the exact moment her team needs her the most. And if Clark really does step back in during this crucial stretch, the Fever instantly transform from a team holding on for dear life into a legitimate playoff threat with nothing to lose and everything to prove. And that's the kind of storyline that shakes an entire sport, because a healthy Clark leading a hungry Fever squad into the postseason isn't just exciting for Indiana, it's a game changer for the WNBA as a whole. So buckle up, because whether you love her or love to hate her, Caitlin Clark's comeback is about to take center stage. And the drama, the pressure, and the spotlight will be bigger than ever. And if she delivers the way everyone knows she can, this could go down as the moment the Fever turned their season from survival mode into one of the most unforgettable playoff pushes we've ever seen.